Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and this is episode 257. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, that is Stacy at StacyPatton89. Stacy, how are you doing?
Doing well. Feliz Navidad to all the Knicks fans out there.
Yes, not a very joyful Christmas for us, but we will talk about that in a little bit. Before we get started, I do have to make an announcement that Strickland has an Instagram. You can follow that at thestrick.land on Instagram. Check that out. We're posting new content on there, pregame and postgame stuff. So definitely give us a follow. We also have a YouTube where you may be watching this very podcast and seeing how scraggly me and Stacy look on this post Christmas morning. If you are, hit like and then subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 1,000 followers on there. That would be a big help. We also have a Patreon, which you can subscribe to for $6. That gets you access to Pod Strickland that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag hosted every other week by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, aka the Doug Bag. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strick and Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful weekly articles by Jack Huntley and Matthew Miranda, two of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits like listening in on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day. Whether you choose to subscribe or not, none of this would be possible without you. So, without further ado, let's get started. The Knicks lost yesterday, the third in a row, 119, 112 to Philly. Um, I have thoughts on the game, but I guess I don't think I've talked to you since we I think we were still winning basketball games last time I talked to you. So we are now losing basketball games. They lost to Toronto on Wednesday, Chicago in a heartbreaker on Friday, an absolute pathetic capitulation, I thought, on multiple levels. And I also thought yesterday was another pathetic capitulation on many levels that we've seen that repeat stuff that we've seen before. But I guess I'll just leave it to you to get started here. But what did you think of the game yesterday, and then just generally what we've seen over these last three games?
Yesterday wasn't as depressing. I've watched every team I root for lose games in the most stupid ways. Some teams can't hit free throws. Some teams don't know how to hand the ball off without fumbling the ball. So yeah, I mean, this game yesterday. I agree with you completely. Chicago is the stupidest one. Toronto was a toss up. It was very frustrating. I think they should have won the Toronto game, but that is a team that is I think that's the team in the Knicks league. I think they are a particularly annoying matchup for the Knicks because of how they're constructed, but they're about the same level as the Knicks, right? So there really isn't a whole lot of shame in losing a game that goes out of the wire to them. Chicago is just it was just an extremely dumb game. Less than a capitulate. They missed free throws. So on the one hand, I don't. They had 8 free throws down the stretch from Grimes, Barrett, Randle, and Brunson, all in the neighborhood of 80% free throw shooters, I believe, this year. Brunson's actually close to 90%. They went 2 for 8. That's not going to happen very often. That doesn't make it any less frustrating, especially in a playoff race where the Knicks can't afford to lose too many. So those were very annoying games, and that's how I thought yesterday was going to go for 3 quarters. I thought it was going to be a game where the Knicks played better and looked like the better team for much of it, but shit like, oh my god, Shake Milton hit a off the glass half court three. I thought that was gonna be the story of the game, and it ended up not being the story of the game. What that game now in hindsight very clearly was for 3 quarters the Knicks looked like the better team, but in the words of Teddy KGB, Philly was able to hang around because they had the 2 best players on the team on the court, and I thought the Knicks had some really impressive possessions against Joel Embiid. I thought Mitchell Robinson played a really good game, but he still got his. He still got to the line a lot. And I think what yesterday showed is the Knicks don't really have a lot of margin up for error. Philadelphia missed a lot of open threes. Philadelphia Embiid was shooting poorly from the foul line. Um, the Knicks were executing their offense for most of the game at an extremely high level, but they can't have they really can't waste any possessions. There are things I would correct, but for as well as I thought the Knicks played really well for the first 3 quarters, and it was tied going to the fourth quarter. And it's a little bit like a boxing match. It felt like where the underdog is landing more punches, has a better strategy, but after 10 rounds or 9 rounds, it's still tied on the scorecard, and then that's when the favorite player, boxer, starts to throw some haymakers, and that's what happened. I think that the Sixers, they were able to stagger Harden and Embiid. Harden looked really fresh, and he started hitting stepbacks, and and I mean, the Knicks really had no answers, right? When they tried to pressure Harden, he was nailing George and Yang. I didn't even think Grimes was irresponsible with his help. Maybe there's some tweaks in his positioning. Smarter people than me, including I think Thibs, might be able to help with that. But they had no answers for Harden. When Harden and Embiid started running the pick and roll, and they didn't even need to bring Embiid back for. I mean, I think they could have won the game without bringing him back. There were just no answers. I think, and that is what it is. I think that in terms of on the Knicks side, so they lost. This was less frustrating than the Bulls and Raptors game because they lost to a team that I think is genuinely better than them and is probably going to be a contender for the Eastern Conference. That is the gap that the Knicks aren't at right now. In terms of issues for the Knicks, that are at least arising from that, I would say from yesterday. These are not huge Thibs criticisms, so I don't want it to come off like that. I do think when a player is playing well, there is a tendency to say, give him the ball and get the fuck out of the way. Which is instead of looking at why is this player succeeding. So if Julius Randle has 25 points in the first half, how is he getting 25 points? Is it because he's coming off? He's getting the ball in good, either on the move or he's able to spot up against a closing out defender, or is it because you're giving him the ball on the right side and letting him isolate? And it tended to be the former, but once he was really hot, we started going a little bit too much to that. And I don't mind him isolating from the middle of the floor, especially if he has a smaller defender. But the problem was there were too many possessions where he ended up doing that right side fadeaway, which I'm not going to kill him over that on a night when he's shooting the ball really well. But like I said, the Knicks don't have margin for error. And I think that's also a bit true with RJ Barrett. I thought that happened a little bit against Chicago, where he's on fire, but look at how he's getting those buckets, right? It's usually with a step on the defender. When you ask these guys to isolate, really it's Brunson is the only guy in isolation who's consistently effective. And I think that leads me to my last point, which is starting to concern me. We can talk about this because I think it's been a point of a little bit of a disagreement. The Knicks bench has been I think that it used to be that the Knicks starters would play other teams to a draw, and the bench was so good they would outscore them. That was something Benji has mentioned as potentially Thibs' strategy. Now it seems to be the opposite, where the Knicks starters are playing really well, and the bench has good enough defense to play most teams to a draw, which is fine, and it's basically what they did yesterday, except you cannot rely on outscoring a team with Joel Embiid and Harden in starters minutes. The Knicks did that for the first half, but that's not as sustainable against these kind of teams. And the point I'm making is that the Knicks bench needs more offense. I think they don't have good spacing, as you've talked about. And the answer has been, well, RJ Barrett, do something. And I'm not heavily in on point RJ. And I would like...
That's a choice, though.
That's a choice, but I also think it is a choice necessitated.
No, it's not.
By the fact
no, hold on. It's not
just wait,
necessitated.
quickly to
You know,
not
hold on. It's not necessitated. It's not. That's a choice that Thibs is making. Let's be clear. He is making that choice because he has decided.
The team is making.
No, it is a choice he is making.
I think
he has decided. Hold on.
You didn't quickly.
No, hold on. No, how can he not be passive? How can he not be passive?
He was more aggressive the last two games. He was more aggressive.
He can't do. He's not allowed to initiate offense. Look at all this. Look at every single. This has been my issue. I brought this up like a week ago when the Knicks were still winning games. I brought this up that they're leaning a little too heavily on RJ, Brunson, Randle initiate everything. That's been, and he's done it now for the last however many games, where as soon as Brunson goes out, there's no chance. There's no, oh, quickly he's going to initiate offense. If he does initiate a set, it's a called set by Thibs. It's usually that fucking play they run to get Jericho Sims a lob. That's usually the play that he gets to initiate. Other than that, he comes up the floor and he passes it to RJ, or he posts to Randle and he clears the fuck out.
There were
That's
multiple possessions, it seemed, where he ran a pick and roll, the Sixers hedged, and he just kind of dribbled and didn't do much. Like, I thought there were a bunch.
Yeah,
I thought he was passive
I
and
think
he had
that's completely
opportunities.
wrong.
I do agree with you that
think that's wrong.
RJ, it's a little bit too much RJ right now.
He's running a token pick and roll. That's what it is. It's a token pick and roll. There's no purpose to it other than run something and then swing the ball to RJ or swing the ball to Randle and let them cook from the top of the key. Does it look like he's empowered to do anything? Like when you're watching it, are you like, wow, this play is for quick and he's just not doing anything? No. And then on top of that, he played 6 fucking minutes yesterday. This is what he's doing now. This is what he's done. Somehow with the 9-man rotation, he is set in stone that all of the Hartenstein and Sims minutes, which we both agree have severe spacing limitations. I don't even think that's just us. That's a general, like, anybody with a brain can see that. Okay. So you're tying these two guys' minutes almost exclusively to this lineup. Okay. Deuce, especially, he only gets to play with those guys. Okay. And then because they're struggling offensively a bit, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy where he's like, okay, well, then I just got to go back to my starters. And he's again not mixing and matching for some reason. We have not seen Brunson and Quickly play many minutes together anymore. Again, for what reason, I have no idea. And then in the Chicago game, I want to go back to this because I completely disagree with you. Yes, were the free throws the biggest factor in the Knicks losing the game? 100%, no question. You miss free throws. Those are literally free throws, right? Like,
and it was from good shooters, so I think it was a bit of an anomaly.
But it is what it is. It's that is no question, and I agree. Yes, good shooters. That is the biggest reason you lost the game. The other ridiculous decision he made in the game was going back to Grimes over Quickly. There was no reason for that. What was the argument for that? Quickly did a better job defensively in that game. Quickly scored better in that game. There was no reason for it. He just did it because we are seeing again, there are things about Thibs that he's just going to do. No matter how much he adapts, no matter what his new lineups are, new rotation, he will always defer to the same things. He wanted Grimes in that game because he had better size. That is it. There was no other reason. There was no argument for who was more effective in that game. Quickly was significantly more effective on both ends of the floor. But no, he wanted Grimes in the game because he sees Zach LaVine, he sees DeMar DeRozan. Oh my God, how can Emmanuel Quickly ever defend these guys? I need Quentin Grimes back in the game because he is my fucking binky now, and I need him for 40 minutes a night, regardless of how he's playing, regardless of opposition. Basically, in his mind, Quentin Grimes is now, fucking Luol Deng. Like, it's a joke. I'm sorry. This is just stupid.
Do you think against wing-sized players or those size players, I do agree that when it comes to off-ball defense, Quickly is elite. He's very good on ball.
We're talking about that game. I'm not talking about generally speaking. Is Grimes a better matchup for the wing guys?
But
I'm talking about that game.
Right? You do have to use a base rate, right? There's been times when Quickly has had bad games.
Quickly's been on fire for 2 games before that. But he can't get a benefit of the doubt. He was on fire against Toronto. He was on fire the game before that, too. I forget who the fuck they played. And then he was on fire again against Chicago. But guess what? He played 21 minutes in a 9-man rotation. How does that make any fucking sense? That makes no sense. I don't care what your logic is. That is fucking ridiculous.
Well, that's less of a down the stretch issue, right? That is
a general issue. My point is, but generally speaking, the way Thibs coaches, you're talking about a guy who, no matter how well he plays in this role, he's going to play at most 25 minutes. So Quickly could be playing lights out. But unless we got it, the one game he played a lot in the last 3 games was that Toronto game. But for some reason, and that's because we had 8 guys, basically, right? So, like, look, I understand somebody might be listening to like, you're being crazy. Like, Quickly wasn't going to turn the game. It's not about quickly turning the game. This also just shows how rigid he is even within a 9-man roster construction. Yesterday, you're getting absolutely lit up at the start of the fourth quarter because Philly has gone small and they're just spreading the floor up for Harden, and they're basically playing 5 out and he's just dotting up shooters, right? Why is your pivot? Why is your pivot never, you know what, let's go small and switch everything or do anything other than what he chose to do? He
Well,
kept
he did have
Hartenstein.
Sims was the 5, right? That is the closest thing
He
they can
played.
do
He
to
played
going
Hartenstein
small.
and Sims together, and then in the fourth quarter, he took Sims out after that timeout and left Hartenstein in, and played Hartenstein and Randle together, and continued to play drop.
I don't remember Hartenstein being in for the disaster sequence with Harden.
Okay,
but-
well, it doesn't really matter because they play drop coverage, which again is another thing. Like Thibs, he's gonna play
Yeah, I
drop
mean,
till he dies.
in the fourth, it seems like they were hedging Harden. They're trying to double Harden. That's when he really started to kill him. So
yeah, but
are you
like
talking about more
that's a
the third
terrible
quarter?
adjustment. Doubling Harden is like a thing. Like that's the
Well,
last
not a
thing you
double, but he was showing Grimes, and I mean, I thought the passing was just
do.
that
You're
quick.
showing against Harden one pass away. That is the dumbest thing you can possibly do. Like off of a shooter, that's the dumbest thing you can possibly do. That's like I cannot think of a stupider adjustment than, you know what, let's soft double Harden one pass away. That's not a good adjustment. And like I'm not talking about let's fire Thibs right now. Look, I've said this even after his good stretch. I don't think he's the guy to take us to the next level. I'm happy he's playing better lineups. I still don't see a lot of like amazing ingenuity on either end of the floor in terms of his schematic stuff. I would still probably move on I would move on from the end of the year. But I don't need him to be fired right now. That's not what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, like, you have a 9-man rotation. Look at the fucking minutes yesterday. And he didn't here's a basic one. Okay? You start the fourth quarter, you got Deuce and you have Quickly on the floor with RJ. Who does he put on James Harden? RJ.
RJ, yeah.
That's the dumbest matchup possible. You're talking about a guy who's going to run fucking 30 pick and rolls. Like he's gonna call for a ball screen, call for a ball screen, call for a bar screen until he gets what he wants. You do not put RJ in that situation because we know that is not the thing that he does very well. You ask him to fight over like 10 ball screens on a possession, that's not his thing. Why do you have Deuce in the game if you're not going to use him there? That is the entire purpose of having Deuce on the fucking floor. Like and then because that lineup struggled, what did he do? He pulled Deuce. And then he brought Grimes back in. And about a minute later, he took Quickly out to put Brunson back in. And Quickly was gonna play 17 minutes yesterday until Brunson, I don't know if he got hurt or whatever happened. I think he might have been like feeling something and they just decided, you know what, the game's over, so fuck this. He was gonna play 17 minutes yesterday. I'm sorry, that's a fucking joke. That is so fucking stupid. It doesn't even register. And then on top of it, you've got.
So you don't think Quickly bears any responsibility for playing passive at all yesterday?
Stacy, he doesn't get to do anything.
You're saying
watch the possessions again.
Thibs is threatening him. That's I'm just saying because I watched.
I don't think he's threatening him. I think he has decided. I trust Brunson. I trust RJ. I trust Randle. We know for a fact, going back to last season, he doesn't think Quickly is much of an initiator. Doesn't matter what Quickly does. He just doesn't think that.
But even on the possessions when Quickly gets into the paint,
he doesn't get to initiate. He's attacking off of somebody else swinging the ball to him.
But
he attacked 3 times. He attacked 3 times yesterday in the paint. He scored twice and turned the ball over once. Maybe he got hacked. He looked like he was trying to pass it out to a shooter. That's all that he drove 3 times yesterday.
There were times when he had a lane and he's just not playing. And I think if you want to say that maybe he's not empowered to, or he's like worried that he's going to get the leash, I think I would believe that. But this is not the same player. It's not just a lack of opportunity. This is not the same player I watched.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely a lack of opportunity. I completely reject this.
But not. I mean, I think there are he's getting pick and rolls. He's getting chances.
He's not.
I think RJ does.
He's not getting pick and rolls.
Offense a little bit with the bench.
He's not getting.
But you watch a guy like Austin Reeves. He had one play yesterday on some defender from the Mavs where he got the ball, did like a fake. He did the kind of shit Quickly used to do, and I never
Quickly
see that.
Scored 11 points yesterday on 7 shots.
7 of those were like garbage.
Oh, you mean when he came in and he had to like run point because Brunson was out, and
he finally was empowered, and he did well. But how much of that is his own aggressiveness versus
absolutely none. You're neutering a player and then you're blaming him for not being aggressive. It's fucking bullshit. Shut up, dude. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about Thibs saying shut up to Thibs. But like, it's a joke. I'm sorry. Like we cannot keep doing this thing where it's like, oh, I wonder why quickly goes from being super aggressive to passive. Like, why would he do that? Why would he do that?
Yeah, so one way or another, right? Something needs to change where they cannot run the bench offense through RJ as a solution on the spacing issues.
Or
Like,
Randle.
or
They
you
do
have
it
to
with
like
Randle
push
though
it.
too. Like, this is my issue. Like you talked about this,
Well,
which
Randall's
you're
not going to play with the bench.
yeah, hold on. You were absolutely right. You mentioned this earlier that when Randle comes in, or when Brunson goes out, and we saw this in the second half. There's just too much like Randle do shit, RJ do shit, right? But like
Yeah.
that is his choice. And we've seen this in past seasons. Like that's what he does. He did that last year all the time. Okay, time for Randle to cook. Like at a certain point, that isn't on anybody other than Thibs. And like what am I like you're talking about? Oh, Quickly's being passive. The entire team was being passive at the start of the fourth quarter. Why? Because Philadelphia went to a zone, and we know that we have no idea of how to attack a zone. There was
Well,
one
there
possession.
is another. How
There was
much of
one
that do you
possession
think
at the
is
start
just
of the fourth. There's one possession. It was either the start of the fourth or end of the third quarter when Hartenstein and Sims were still in. Quickly brought the ball up. He saw they were in or no, actually, I think Brunson might have been in. And it wasn't even Hartenstein and Sims. It was just, I think it would have been Randle and Hartenstein, whatever the fuck it was. I don't remember what the alignment was. It didn't really matter who it was. But they played zone, and he's trying to direct stuff for like 12, 13 seconds because nobody had any idea what to do. Because, oh my God, they're in the zone. We have no clue what to do. This is a 3-year problem now, where if a team goes and plays zone, we look absolutely flummoxed. So yesterday, to me, and I know people say this is ridiculous, do I think that Philly's a better team? Yeah, Philly's definitely a better team than us. They have Harden, they have Embiid, they have two superstars. Like, it is what it is. I think yesterday was not a coaching loss, but it revealed exactly the same issues we've seen from Thibs over and over again. And like, yes, he's playing better lineups, so we'll probably win more basketball games now. But ultimately, you still see the same exact issues with him. 6 minutes for Deuce yesterday. He refuses to play small. He refuses to try that in a matchup where it probably made sense. It made a lot more sense than Hartenstein and Sims. And like the Hartenstein and Sims thing is fine. I kind of like it at times, but it has to be a situational thing. Like you see in the first half, it did not work at all. They scored one basket in like 5 minutes of game time together, or something like that.
Well, that's the. I mean, he can't play other lineups. What else would you have him play Barrett at the 4?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
If he's going to
you're
play
only giving
Grimes,
Deuce 6
if he's
minutes,
going to play Grimes 38 minutes a night, then you can do that. It's not hard. It's very easy to do that then. He's playing Grimes and RJ a shit ton of minutes. So it's not like he's like, oh, I can't do that because I'm trying to keep RJ at 34 and Grimes at 32 or no. He's
so your
playing them a shit
lineup,
ton of
your
minutes.
bench lineup would be more minutes of Deuce, IQ, RJ, Grimes, which I don't believe that lineup plays together at all.
The
But
only
those
time we
4
played it
plus
together,
Sims,
was against the Kings and it worked really well. That's all I know. Like, that's the only time we played it together. It worked really well. Was it great offensively? No. But it is a lot more versatile defensively. And you know what? I bet offensively it would be a lot better over more minutes because those guys will have better spacing. It's just that easy to me.
Yeah, Hartenstein is rough right now. It seemed
Hartenstein
like
is
he couldn't play him against Embiid because it's Embiid, and he couldn't play because the Sixers stagger. And shout out Doc Rivers for figuring that out. After how many years of being a coach, I think he started to stagger.
and
For a
this
few
is
years.
this is the frustrating thing with Thibs. Like,
But you couldn't play him
he
against the bench either, Hartenstein,
yeah,
because of Harden, right? So
and this is what's frustrating about Thibs. He was staggering. He was staggering. And now he's just stopped doing it again. Like he's just
well,
okay,
his version of staggering is RJ playing with the bench, right?
yeah, but it was also okay, we're gonna play quickly with Brunson a bit. And he just stopped doing that now. But they get like a few minutes together. That's about it. Even yesterday in the second half, I don't think Quickly played with Brunson at all.
Yeah, I mean, I am of the opinion that I would rather see him play Brunson if the idea is stagger a starter with the bench um to hold up the offense. I would prefer that. I mean, like I said, Brunson is really the only player I trust in isolation. I think at
I
times
agree.
Randle has looked like the most talented offensive player. But he got
There
25.
are good Randle isolations and there are bad Randle isolations.
But just
And the
being
bad Randle isolations tend to come when he's not on the floor with Brunson.
but I mean,
Because where he gets the ball and where we're deploying him from is fundamentally different. He plays with Brunson. He's not isolating from the top of the key. He might get a lot of threes from up there, might get some pick and pops, but he's not isolating from the top of the key a lot.
Well,
And when he
so I
does, it
think
usually sucks. But
he did get a few of those at the beginning of the second half. But my point is, in general, right? When he's like, he wasn't isolating a whole lot in the first half yesterday. Those were a lot more attacking. I think he had some gorgeous finishes around
yeah,
Embiid.
he was good. He was really good in the first half.
He was
Especially.
slashing. I actually like this. Aside from, I think there was one closeout. He had issues with Tucker where he didn't close out once, and I think he was helping. So the Sixers made a nice adjustment. I actually thought Doc coached Thibodeau, which outcoached Thibodeau, which was one of the worst parts of the game. But
Well, how many
Doc
games
made a
have you
nice.
watched? How many games have you watched this year? And you're like, Thibs has outcoached his opponent.
Let me look at the game log. But my point with Randle is just because he's effective as a finisher doesn't mean you start isolating him all the time,
Well,
right?
it's the exact wrong takeaway from that.
Yeah, but I think we did that with RJ too against the Bulls.
We did that with RJ against Philly. Like this is like I hate.
Well, we did that with RJ because that's the only way Tibbs feels you can generate with the bench.
Right, but so this is my point though. Is like so okay. I thought RJ and Randle had bad second halves and awful fourth quarters. Okay, no question
I
about it.
thought Randle was okay, but RJ definitely had a bad second.
I think in the fourth quarter they were both atrocious. But here's my thing: were they both atrocious? Absolutely, no question. Okay, let's just say that's the we can both admit they both played whatever you want to say, bad, atrocious. They were both not good in the fourth quarter. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what like they're not guys that you just give the ball against a set defense at the top of the key and run possessions through, and you should expect over like 5, 6, 7, 8 possessions them to consistently produce good offense. That's not who they are. That's not the level of their play. And that's okay. Like that's their strengths and weaknesses in this case as a player. So as a coach, you need to do something to help them. So even if he looks at quickly and he's like, this guy can't penetrate for shit, okay? Fine.
Pause.
You can still use him to get those guys the ball in better positions. You're allowed to post up RJ Barrett. You're allowed to post up Julius Randle. In fact, I'd much rather you do that than just give them the ball at the top of the key and tell them to cook. Oh, set a screen, run a pick and like no. There are so many other ways to go about deploying them, even if you don't believe Quickly is a good enough dribble penetrator. Like, it's just, I'm so sick of this nonsense. I'm sick of watching that shit. And it's like, every time you think he's discovered something or he's going to try new things, he reverts. And he reverted the last 2 games because he's so deathly afraid of like certain matchups. And oh my God, Quickly size versus Levine, and or Quickly size versus like, who were you scared of Quickly matching up with yesterday? That's what I want to know. Fucking Shake Milton?
D'Anthony Melton was on fire though.
Yeah, but he was on fire against
He's been
Brunson, who's smaller than fucking Quickly.
Yeah, they defended him well. I mean, you're a big Melton guy. I mean, I'm sure.
I love Melton. Guess what? Guess what? If we're going to lose,
Quickly was probably the best guy to put on him. I agree with that.
The point is, none of those. D'Anthony Melton wasn't killing you because he was just like such a mismatch nightmare. He's killing you because he's cooking on catch and shoot threes. Okay, like there was not a single matchup there aside from Harden who you didn't. If you don't trust him, you didn't need to put him on Harden. There's no matchup there that you couldn't have gone like that you couldn't have put him on for. And this is my issue with you're looking at that game. Hardenstein doesn't have shit. Okay, the Hardenstein and Sims look especially doesn't have shit. Why not try to go small? Why is that not an occasion to try it? To fucking try it. He will not try it ever. He will never try it unless he's absolutely forced to. And I'm sorry, that is a major, major fundamental flaw in a head coach. And like we will talk about the players because I don't think this was, again, as I said, I did not think this was a coaching loss. I did not think the Bulls game was a coaching loss. But if you cannot be honest about, and I'm not saying you, obviously, I'm saying people in general, there are people that are like, oh, you're nitpicking. Oh, I'm sorry, is bringing up issues fucking nitpicking now, you dumb piece of shit? Like, no, it's not. I'm sorry. I've had this issue with the offense even when they were winning games. I think our scoring balance is not healthy. It's not healthy. You've got 3 20-point per game guys, and then you've got 2 guys barely getting into double figures. Quickly, who apparently doesn't deserve to play more than 20 minutes a night unless he's dunking like prime Derrick Rose or something. And and Grimes, who has to live off of whenever Brunson, RJ, and Randle deign to kick it out to him on open threes. That is what he lives on. Like, it's not a healthy balance. And I think, yes, is some of this just the nature of the way that Brunson and RJ and Randle all cook, as a friend of the pod, Ball Don't Stop would say? Yeah, maybe. But I also think some of it is the nature of how you're using them. And like, has
And
it
it's
got
also
better?
it's Brunson is really the only guy who cooks effectively that way.
Yeah,
The
and I
other
think
two
I
are
think
better when they get the ball on the move. Let's
yeah,
just be real.
and I think the assist numbers, they've been good recently. I don't think look,
Like the
I don't
first
think you
quarter, they were amazing
yeah,
yesterday.
it always goes down, and I get it. Like, you can say at the end of the game, actually, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just gonna bring this up. So there's like the general colloquial wisdom of like games slow down in the fourth quarter, and like at the end of the day, you need guys that can just like cook and get their own shot and blah 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 blah. Right? I actually watched this interview before we played the Pacers, where the interviewer asked Rick Carlisle about that, and he was like, basically said that's bullshit, and that like you that's about players not continuing to push the pace and play the way they were to start games and earlier parts in games. Now, do I buy that entirely? No, I think teams focus more, players focus more. There's just more there's more defensive intensity in the fourth quarter than there is in other parts of the game. But I do think that like how segmented that game became, especially at the end against both Chicago and Philadelphia yesterday. I mean, look, we've seen Thibs now for 3 years. I think it's fair to say that he likes slowing it down and going into like ISO heavy stuff towards the end of basketball games to salt the game away, right? And um,
You
it's a
can't do
lot
that
better.
when you're the underdog. That's
Yeah, and it's a lot better this year because Brunson is like, he's that good, but that's not a cure all, and it's still it just makes it better. It doesn't actually like fix the issue. um, so like I don't want anybody listening to this, and maybe you've already jumped the shark, but like, look, did we lose the game because Thibs? No, we didn't lose the game because Thibs. But I'm sorry, I watched that game yesterday, and to me, it was infuriating watching his coaching decisions.
and
And
I'll add another thing on going small. I think the thing is this, right? If you bench Hartenstein, it's a thing, right? He's a free agent acquisition. He was in the rotation. That gets brought up a lot, right? You can't bench these vets. It's not easy to do. You have locker room issues. The thing is, if you show flexibility and you're like, some nights you might not play, and some night you might get 30 minutes because that's just the nature of the beast. We're going to try to match up and win every game. That becomes less of a thing if Hartenstein does sit for a couple of games, right? It becomes less of a locker room issue, I think, when you're just known to be more flexible. Whereas, like, if you actually did take him out at one point, then he's done, and then that really would be an issue, you know. So
yeah, like he creates these issues with so much of like how he views this stuff. Like Fournier can never play again.
yeah,
Fournier
right.
will never play
If
again.
you had said that sometimes we need shooting and you're going to play those games, and sometimes we need defense, you're not going to, right? It would have been better. I mean, now that might be a front office directive because they want to trade him, and getting him in good rotation is
It's
tough. But
that's not a, there's no way they told him you can't play Evan Fournier. That's just not reality. Like, no, no shot.
not
Like,
even Reddish.
why would they tell him you can't play Reddish?
Well, if they really do want to trade him and they don't want him
Yeah,
to get hurt
but like he could get hurt fucking walking his
on the
doggy.
subway,
He can get hurt doing anything.
slip on dog shit.
Yeah, he could get hurt in practice. He could get hurt at shoot around. He could get hurt crossing the fucking
I mean,
road.
that's
Like,
practice, not a game.
yeah, I exactly. But like, no, I think this is Thibs. We know this with Thibs. There, once you're out, you're out. Like we saw this Austin Rivers, right? Austin, did the front office tell him to stop playing Austin Rivers? The guy didn't play for like 2 months till we traded him. No,
Well,
that
I
was
was
just
kind of
Thibs.
happy about that, but
I was too. But the point is, like, what there are certain guys that once you're out, you're out. Like you're done. Fournier is done. He's not playing again. Reddish is done. He's not playing again. And this is not because the front office was like, oh, you can never play them again. Do I think the front office may have told him that they preferred to see Deuce over Reddish? Yeah, I think that's very possible, given the nerds that are populating some of the front office decision making hives. Yes, absolutely. But there's no way they ever were like, you can never play Cam Reddish. Who says that? No one's going to say that. Oh, yeah, we would rather not play Cam Reddish and play 8 guys. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
or
No.
play play two big matchup, which
Right,
again
and the
defense
2
isn't
big
that
thing to
bad.
your point, like, that's the perfect example of, like, hey, you can talk to those guys, and it doesn't you could tell Sims the same thing you're telling Hartenstein. Hey, there's certain matchups you're gonna play a lot, there's certain matchups you might not play at all, but we need you to stay ready because we're going to need you over the course of this season, right? Like, you can have that conversation with these guys. You can have that. Maybe you can't have that conversation with Reddish because he just wants out and he wants to play somewhere he's going to get consistent burn no matter what, which is fair enough. I would be
Do you think
absolutely
his
shocked.
representation would have requested that if we don't have a consistent role, we don't want to risk him getting hurt?
I don't think it should matter.
That would, I mean, well, yeah, and I don't think that would
Yeah,
talking
and I
through
don't
that
think
if
they
you're trying
would.
to get paid.
I don't think that's a particularly good look, and I think any minutes for him is a good opportunity given his contract
And
situation.
kind of on the same note, right, when it comes to, do you think fatigue? I mean, this is 3 games that they've really felt not fallen apart all 3 in the fourth quarter, but they've lost in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Do you think fatigue has
I
been
don't
an
think
issue?
fatigue was. I mean, what do we like? Did they miss the free throws because of fatigue against Chicago? I don't really buy that. Um, did they lose to Toronto because of fatigue? I don't think so. I think
They've
they just
completely. I mean, even Mitch got beat. Like Mitch was dominating Embiid on the glass. Not a sentence I ever thought I'd say. And then in the fourth, he gave up a pretty. You gave him an offensive rebound. Even when he came back in, it just seemed like they
wait,
lacked energy
but
and they
wasn't
weren't
that
making the
offensive
rotation
rebound
score.
wasn't that offensive rebound one where it was like he stripped Embiid who kind of like chucked up a shot and it came back
No,
to Embiid?
I'm thinking this was a putback. My point
Okay, I
is
mean,
that
look, it's one putback. Like, I don't know.
it's a play that
Is it a
wasn't happening
factor?
for 3 quarters,
Is it
right?
a factor? Yeah,
It seemed
may,
like all of them were just not making the rotations that
I
would
just
make.
think they were demoralized.
That's fair.
Like, I thought that game, what it was like 108, 102, or it was 102, 105 actually, and then they made it 3. Brunson comes down the floor. He swings it to RJ, who's open in the corner. I did not like Brunson doing that. I thought he needed to get a grip of the game at that point in the game. Just slow things down.
Wasn't a
And
bad basketball play though, but
it
yeah, I
wasn't a
see what
bad
you're saying.
basketball play. I just think it was not a good reading of the moment. Um, he swings it to RJ, who was basically in brick mode by that time. He bricks a corner 3. I think they came down and hit a 3 after that. That was basically the game. And I think they got it to like 116, 102 before the Knicks scored again. Um, I just I don't really know like what to make of all that, but um, I thought they just looked demoralized, and this is not the first time we've seen them kind of let go of the rope in a moment. And the final score ends up being 119, 112. It was basically a 15-point game that they cut, and you know, Philly was salting the game away. The Knicks
But the
got
only
some
time
stops.
quickly was whether allowed or not or doing it. That was the only time he was
Yeah,
aggressive
you're in
yesterday.
desperation mode, so it's kind of like, okay, just take whoever can get a shot, get a shot. So that doesn't really surprise me. But like we've seen this in way too many games now. He doesn't trust quickly. He's not going to give him initiating opportunities. When he's on the floor with Brunson, he never initiates. When he's on the floor with Randle and RJ, he never initiates or barely initiates. Like this is what it is. And it's not just quickly. Grimes is in the same boat. And I'm not asking, I don't think Grimes needs to be like running 15 pick and rolls a game. I think he can do a little bit more than we use him for.
I'd
I
love to
mean,
see him more in screen and roll because of how good he is as a kind of getting the ball in weird situations and passing. Like he's got a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, so he's been
he's
pretty good
passing
in that
really
role.
well. He's passing really well. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's. Let me just see this. Let's see this. Okay. Manuel quickly, his usage right now is 19.4, which, by the way, for a ball hog, that would be a career low for him. Okay. Quentin Grimes. Let's check out his usage. Quentin Grimes' usage, 13.1, which is even lower than last year. Like, these are guys. I'm sorry, that usage is indicative of what they are and not and what they're being allowed to do and not allowed to do. I don't think it's just they don't want like
Well,
quickly made a
Grimes is
play.
never going to be that much higher. Like that's just the
Why
reality of
though?
this game.
No, that he's not going to be higher because Thibs won't empower him to
I
do it.
mean,
I think he's got more
quickly
shot
has the
creation
ability
skills
to
than this.
create, right? Like Grimes is more of he is a guy who can get the ball on the move, who can attack closeouts and do more than it. But you're not going to really have him isolate or run pick and maybe some more screen and rolls for Grimes, especially with his pull up ability. I
We will
wouldn't be
never
opposed to
know.
that.
We will never know under this head coach. I think it's that simple. We will not know. The only guy who has made like a significant usage leap going from role player to star, or like not star, but just shot creator under Thibs. I mean, he did become a star. Is Butler. That's it. You can look at everybody else.
Noah for a season.
I mean, that was out of
His
necessity.
usage didn't go up super.
Yeah, his usage didn't go up. So like,
I mean, he
and
passed.
also like that, I would not even blame. Like, I am very okay with Thibs not wanting Noah's usage up.
You didn't like the tornado.
No, the tornado
jumper.
It was an experience that needed to be in limited
Have you seen
usage.
the GIF of DeMarcus Cousins just mocking him to his face?
Yes. But like here's an example, right? Okay. This is Desmond Bain. Okay? Desmond Bain as a rookie. Guess what his usage was?
23.
16.1.
Wow.
Guess what his usage was the next year?
The next year was last year, right?
Yeah.
That's probably, I'm going to say 22.
23. And guess what it is this year?
26?
27. So, like, and look, I get it. We added Brunson. RJ is RJ. Randle's Randle. He's not going to be able to get
Bain
to, like,
is also like 3 years older, or 2 or 3 years older than Grimes and quickly. So, yeah.
Sure.
But, yeah.
But the point is, like, Memphis Memphis as a front office empowered Taylor Jenkins to empower him effectively, right? Like, they clearly did not take issue with how he has increased Bain's offensive role. And again, I don't think this is entirely down to Thibs, because you add Brunson, who's a high usage guy, or Randle's a high usage guy, RJ's a high usage guy. There's only so many shots to go around. But he can definitely do more. And he definitely should be doing more. And especially with Obi Toppin out, I think one way to be able to get him to do more would be to play him in those bench units in small ball looks. And I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, I have to go through and like go game by game, but I think we're seeing less of RJ, or we were at least seeing early in that 8-game run, right? We saw a lot of minutes where Grimes and McBride and Quickly played together. We did not see that at all yesterday, I don't think. And I'm not sure we saw that at all against Chicago. And yes, I am 100% in agreement that, like, Deuce needs to do a lot. He needs to show more offensively when he gets the ball, and Grimes needs to show more offensively when he gets the ball. But you have to allow them to do it. You have to give them the opportunities, and then you need to put it on them. That's not what's happening here. He's actually, like, trying desperately to avoid those situations. And it's actually, with each game, that is increasing. He's not giving he's giving them less and less opportunity. Again, Deuce got 6 minutes yesterday. What the hell is he supposed to do in 6 minutes? He barely touched the ball. What can he do? I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, I reject the idea that this is, Quickly is passive, Deuce is passive. If all these guys are passive, it says something. Just like it says something when we're 3 years in to the same head coach. We've got different personnel. We've got way more offensive firepower. And yet anytime a team goes into zone, we look absolutely shell-shocked. It says something. Like, these are just facts about Thibs and about how he's deploying these guys. And I'm not going to ask for him to get fired, because right now that's not going to happen. And I'm not particularly of the opinion that's not necessarily even beneficial. All I need him to do is just be better about giving guys minutes and being slightly more flexible with how he's deploying some of these dudes. Like, okay, Deuce is not a great shot creator, right? Fine. Then play him more when there's 2 others on the floor. It does seem
like even Deuce gets more opportunities on ball than Quickly, or at least that's money. But
that's the point. Dude, like, this, going back to this offseason, Berman said multiple times, he doesn't, he always says they, which we know what the fuck that means. That means Thibs. Thibs doesn't think Quickly is a point guard. The way he's always described him in the lens of Thibs is a nice combo guard off the bench who can score a bit. That's what he thinks Quickly is. And that's how he uses him. So, like, it doesn't surprise me that for whatever reason he views Deuce as more of a natural point, whatever the fuck that means. But, like, I mean, it's not particularly surprising. And I really don't get it. I think it's actually a detriment. And he did this last year too, right? Remember, he started Deuce at point over quickly. That was a thing that happened. I don't know. I just think it's really ridiculous what he's done, the way he's using quickly the last 3 games during this losing streak. Like he started quickly against the Raptors. Quickly had what 20? I think he was 6 of 8 from three or something.
6 of 9.
Six of
Nice.
nine, very nice. 6 of 9 from three. Right? Okay, so clearly, at the very minimum, we have some evidence that the man is not a lost cause from three, as many wanted to pretend. He also went 5 of 6 from three against Golden State the game before that, right? So he looks like he's shooting the ball with some confidence again. He went 1 of 5 against Chicago from three, but I thought none of those shots were bad shots. He didn't hesitate. And he also was 5 of 4 from two. So like whatever it was, he played well against Chicago. And then yesterday he was 2 of 5 from three, which whatever, it doesn't really say anything. But like the point is like he's shooting again with confidence, which is the entire point. You can play him more with shot creators. If that is what you view him as, you still have the opportunity to do that more. And you have the opportunity to do that with Deuce. He's choosing not to do that over these last 3 games. That's his choice. That's his choice. And maybe against Chicago, that was more understandable because, okay, Levine and DeRozan have size and blah, blah, blah. It was not yesterday. Yesterday was a joke. He was going to play 17 minutes until he brought him back in because Brunson needed a rest at the end of the game because maybe he was hurt or something. That was a joke. 17 minutes in a 9-man rotation for Emmanuel Quickly is a joke. 6 minutes for Deuce in a 9-man rotation is also a joke.
Well, that's also why I bring up the fatigue, right? Because it seems like he especially doesn't trust the bench right now, even though the bigger issues, I agree. It's Hartenstein, but he doesn't have a way to get around to that. Another question is, so Mitchell Robinson had got 3 fouls and had to go to the bench. He finished the game with 3 fouls. Do you think, I mean, he only played 28 minutes. Do you think that was more a conditioning issue, or do you think Tibbs was maybe a tad aggressive with the auto bench? Which against Joel Embiid, I do think is fair, but
I don't think the auto bench was a problem. I thought I just didn't really understand the second half. Like, I didn't understand any of the decisions he made in the second half. Tibbs. I'd like none. From substitutions to rotations to lineups that were being deployed to the tactical strategies on both ends of the floor. Didn't like any of it. I tweeted it out and I was told I was nitpicking because we got good shots. Guys just missed. I don't know how anybody could have watched our offense.
not in the fourth. Definitely not the fourth quarter.
The end of the third into the fourth quarter. I don't know how anybody could have watched us on offense and thought, we're getting good shots. We're just missing. Yeah, we're getting open threes, but they're not in rhythm. They weren't out of any type of productive offensive set.
What would
It
have
was
been
just
your
desperation.
adjustment on defense to getting just torched?
Go small. If you're going to play Grimes and RJ and Brunson a shit ton, go small. And you're going to play Randle a shit ton, just go small.
I mean, was there anyone that on the team do you think that could have stopped James Harden, or do you think being able to switch everything would have helped? Because he was, I mean, he was pulling
If
up
you were
from
going to
the
do
logo.
if you're going to do what he did, right, which is the soft hedge, effectively, right, soft hedging, then you need to have your most athletic lineup out there that is going to be on a string on perimeter rotations. He didn't do that. And you know what the funny thing is? When he had to go back to quickly at the end of the game, guess who blocked a fucking three?
Yeah.
Guess who blocked a three? Like,
Yeah.
this is like you needed guys that were going to die to make those rotations. Go watch the possession. Go watch the defensive possession right before he pulled quickly. Go watch that one back. He made like 3 different rotations
Yeah.
to
Which was
cover up
odd that he got
for
pulled right
various
then.
things, and he got pulled right after that. It was an absolute joke. I don't even tweet about quickly during games anymore because people are just like, "You just love quickly. You're being ridiculous." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right, dude. You got me. I love the guy who magically the team generally plays better with." Whew, thought it's a fucking crime now. But like, this isn't even about quickly. It could have been Deuce. It could have been more like you
Well,
needed
against
those
a
guys.
team that had a guy go for 50 with 6'8" size, it could have been the guy that's on the bench that's 6'8", right? Like,
Yeah,
there's adjustments that are just being left on the
and
table right
and
now.
and I'll say this: like, if even if he just says Reddish is done forever, I don't want to play him again. Fine, so be it. But like he still had options in the rotation. He did not even attempt. Like Why is this? Remember that? What was the game? I think it was against Memphis, right? Where at the end of a quarter, he brought Deuce in for defensive purposes. Good. And then he had him on like some off-ball dude. I forgot who the fuck it was. Instead of putting him on Ja, which is like, what is the point of bringing Deuce in then? Like,
What was it? Was it Brooks or Bain?
I know it wasn't Bane. Bane didn't play that game. It was the second game. I don't remember what it was. The point is, like, if you have Deuce in the game, put him on James Harden. Put him on whoever is initiating the offense. That is the thing that he does very well. And it's not like RJ's size was giving Harden problems. Like it wasn't. So it wasn't, and it's not just Grimes' size wasn't giving Harden problems. You know what might give him problems? Somebody who's contesting him, who's making it harder for him to dribble.
Paradoxically, someone who could get low and into his
Yeah,
body a little bit too.
right. Like it doesn't. So to me, like he still had options yesterday. Does it mean we win the game if he makes if he picks those choices? No. This is like, and this is why people always twist this argument to be like, oh, well, we wouldn't have won the game anyway. That's not the fucking point. The point isn't would we have won the fucking basketball game. The point is, would it have given us a better chance? That is always the point, because you can never guarantee in a one game scenario that that adjustment X will win you the game. There's no way to ever prove that. There's no way. It's not possible.
Unless you give Marshawn Lynch the ball at the 1 yard line, they would have definitely won that game. But
Yeah, they would
anyway.
have definitely won that game. But like the point is, over a longer sample, there's more than enough now to suggest that Deuce McBride is a better option to defend the point of attack than RJ Barrett. It's not like some, high level, amazing Nick Nurse style like experimental thing. No, it's like a very basic thing. Deuce McBride in college had Cade Cunningham in fucking jail. Cade Cunningham is what, 6'8"?
Yeah.
So he's bigger than James Harden. It's not. You put that guy on the primary ball handler. That's it. Simple. Very easy. Other than Nikola Jokic, there's no primary ball handler in the NBA that I'm like, ooh, like this.
Well, who would the Celtics have put on? Who would the Celtics have put on Harden?
I mean, Jason Tatum probably, or Jaylen Brown, or Marcus Smart. Like
I think it would have been smart, to be honest, because
but
then you can.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe it would be, but it could have been Tatum. But that's because Tatum is a better defender than RJ Barrett. Like
you also don't have to worry about foul trouble as much with Deuce as you would with RJ potentially.
right. So to me, it's just like,
I mean, not because Deuce would foul us, because if he gets in foul trouble, it's not the end of the world.
Right. So to me, this isn't like a fire Thibs conversation. I just want Thibs to do better. Like, I think Thibs has shown he can do better. And I think Thibs has shown that when he picks certain lineups and trusts them, that they have delivered for him at a certain level. I'm not saying they've won us games on their own, but they've been good. Like, that quickly Deuce Grimes lineup was really good. Clamp teams up, and we're not even seeing it now. Why? What happened? We could play them against Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, but we can't do it against Shake Milton and James Harden, or Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. Why? There's only one answer why. Because what height is Darius Garland? What height is Donovan Mitchell? That's it. That's the only reason he was comfortable doing it. He wouldn't have done it against the Kings. He had to, because Brunson got hurt and Randle got ejected. So I'm not begging for him to be fired right now. I am begging for him to use his fucking brain and do things that he was doing when we won 8 in a row. This is not rocket science. It isn't. A 9-man rotation, it is not this hard to figure out how to get Deuce 15 minutes and quickly 25 minutes. That is not. That is like bare minimum expectation type of stuff. And if you can't do that, and you're apologizing for it, as many people did yesterday in my mentions but I then muted all those because it's Christmas. And I was not trying to have that conversation. You're setting the bar so low for Thibs. Like, you're setting the bar so incredibly low for him. All right, enough about Thibs. You brought up Mitchell Robinson. I want to talk about Mitchell Robinson because I thought he was awesome yesterday. I thought he was arguably our best player. I know Randle had a great first half. I didn't love the second half. Not gonna. I mean, look, I'm man enough to say that the way Julius Randle is playing right now, I might have gripes with individual decisions, with some stretches of play, but blaming him for various things seems a bit much to me. And I
Even the
think,
defense has improved.
yeah, I think the defense has improved. He got destroyed in drop yesterday, but like that's
That's
just
always going to happen.
yeah, that's just him. Like that, there's nothing I can say about that at this point. That's just what he is. Um,
So it's again how he's being deployed
yeah,
with
and
much
I
better
think
structure.
and I think when he's being deployed well offensively, we're seeing that he's made an active choice to um, at least attempt to play a better brand of ball, and that's all I can ask of him right now. And I also want to say I appreciated him taking the bullet after that Chicago loss, which really, I don't know. I mean, he missed a rebound at 115, 112. I kind of get that, but like, let's be real. That was on Brunson and Grimes. That was not on Randle. So I thought that was really good leadership on his part, actually. So I want to give him credit for that. But I want to go back to Mitch because I think Mitch has played. He was not good against Chicago, but I think largely he's been great over this last stretch since he came back from injury. And yesterday, look, Joel Embiid gives everybody buckets. I thought Mitch did as good a job as you can hope to do on Joel Embiid, really. Especially if you're going to leave him on an island and not give him help.
Especially
It's not,
before he got in foul trouble. And there were a couple times when he had blocks, and then
the ball went back to Embiid somehow.
yeah, and that was just like, what are you gonna do there? So I mean, yeah, like his positioning on a lot of those Embiid drives, like he was forcing Embiid under the hoop, and then Embiid usually is okay with that against most players because he has the length. But Mitch, so that was a great combination of Mitch, like mentally getting to a much better place than he has been previously, understanding where he can funnel Embiid to best use his tools. He was dominant on the offensive glass. I mean, the last few games, the number of times that he's just kept alive possessions late against Chicago, against Toronto, and that's incredible, especially for a team that does bog down a little bit on offense late. I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, this is everything you wanted to see when he was a rookie, with maybe like 80% of the mobility, ideally. But again, when you play him with good point of attack defenders, even like the fact that he, like, we haven't seen the freshman or the rookie Mitch that we saw. I think he was the age of a freshman, right? Um, doesn't matter as much because like it's not like he's Enes Kanter, or even like he's more mobile. He's probably equal mobility to a guy like Rudy Gobert, right? So obviously not as big. So as long as you have a guy who's not going to leave him hanging out to dry and drop, he's fine. I thought he was incredible yesterday, and I think the Randall Mitch minutes are really good to see. And I did wonder if maybe, but that's the thing. Like he's not really a guy you can trust with 3 fouls. And I do think even when he came back in the second half, there was a noticeable difference in how he was defending Embiid, and that's really what got Embiid going because he was worried about fouls.
um, yeah, and it just gives me more confidence to see him now against a guy like Jokic, who's always given him mass. I mean, look, Jokic gives everybody problems. I think he had a 40-point triple double again last night, so pretty good basketball player.
Oh, hum, right? Yeah.
But like I won't. We played Denver at some point at the Garden this year. I definitely want to see how Mitch does in that because again, Jokic is a guy who not just Mitch gives everybody problems. So I'm very curious to see how he performs. But yeah, I mean, I think that he's just showing a lot of maturity in how he's handling a lot of these post guys that have gotten him in foul trouble before. Vucevic gave him an issue on Friday. I mean, it's kind of weird. I actually didn't think Mitch played a bad defensive game. It was just more like he didn't have a great one.
And with
Um,
stretch fives, part of it is Mitch, wanting to be in the paint, but he's asked Tibbs is never going to say stick to Vucevic at the 5 and don't help in the paint, right? So like it's kind of a no-win situation against stretch fives for Mitch at that point.
yeah, I mean, I think that's just more of like, look, Niang said it yesterday, not me. He said like, I don't know why the fuck they were playing deep drop. I haven't seen that since I was in like, I think he might have said high school or college. Not exactly high praise of our defensive
For a
strategy.
guy who plays again for another notoriously conservative and not the best coach. So
The
yeah,
thing is, Doc has always been more creative offensively than Tibbs. Like,
low bar, but yeah.
yeah, low bar, but he, it's not even like, yeah, it is a low bar, but it's like when I say more creative, he just will try like 5-out stuff sometimes, or four. Like, so if they're both shorthanded, I think Doc tends to veer on the side of like, let me try to get more shooting spacing on the floor, whereas Thibs will veer towards like
Size.
size, defense, and rebounding. Right. So it's just like they're different in their rigidity and their what they lean towards, but I think Doc is slightly better than Thibs in that sense. Um, but yeah, look, this is like I hate this conversation too because there are people like, oh, this is what happens. You don't have a superstar, and it's like I'm not expect like it's not about winning or losing the game. Like this always misses the point. It's not about winning or losing the game. It's I wasn't upset when they lost to the Raptors. I wasn't upset about that. I thought it was stupid that he didn't bring Mitch back in, but like overall, I wasn't upset about that loss because I was like,
I mean, that was
okay,
frustrating, not because of Tibbs as much as just the circumstances. Felt
yeah,
like they should have won.
the circumstances, the refs were bad. There were a lot of things, right? But like, I wasn't upset after that game. I was fine after that game. I was like, okay, whatever, shit happens. I was upset after both the Chicago and Philly games because I thought the process was bad. Um, for different reasons, but all reasons we've talked about so many times going back months, right? This is not like it happened yesterday and we're like, oh my God, how did this happen? This is stuff that we've talked about previously. So, um, whatever. I do think it is worth mentioning RJ did have what I thought was probably his best game as a pro against the Chicago Bulls on Friday. I know he had 46 last year against Miami. I thought this was a better performance. It's actually a travesty we didn't win that game because
You're
we should have
wasted.
won that game just because we wasted it. But he was awesome. That was the most in control I've seen him. Uh, I know he's he's actually now some of the turnovers. He's had some higher turnovers games recently. I'm actually okay with that. And I'm annoyed that he didn't have more turnovers maybe yesterday than shot attempts because, or not more, but like he was forcing up shots yesterday in the fourth, whereas some of his higher turnover games recently have come. It seems like he understands where help is coming from, but he's trying to figure out where his passing options are, and he's struggling a little bit, which is kind of like growth you need to see when you're developing as a shot creator and ball handler. So I thought that was that some of these higher turnover games, which he's had against Chicago and he had against Toronto, they're a little bit encouraging actually. He had it against Indiana too, a game that we won. So slightly encouraging in the sense that like he's trying to now make passes, whereas in previous seasons he might have forced up shots. Um, Obviously you want to see him turn those turnovers into assist opportunities, but he actually had a really great pass to Randle, a couple, but one that Randle actually cashed in on in the corner off a drive late in that game against Chicago. So those are like just really encouraging things to see from him. And that game overall, like I know he had a bad game yesterday, um, but like he's been on a much better offensive run lately. And that game against Chicago was just fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's been. I think that the tunnel vision has decreased. Yesterday, I think was a step backwards, but I think with all these young players, it's going to be two steps forward, one step backward. I thought, yeah, I mean, against the and he's also started to flash some, things like step backs. I think that he had no mid range game last year. What's he shooting this year? I know there was a big stretch in the beginning, but
I can find out.
I mean, I'm on it right now, but he's getting into the paint. He can go to it a little. He can fall in love with this, but I think that little turnaround, the flip shot, or when he stops his momentum, that little mid 6 to 8 foot floater push shot. He's become pretty adept at that, and it's a really nice counter to his drives. Which in turn I do think is helping his drives.
So
Basketball reference.
he's shooting 21.7% from 10
Yeah,
to 16 feet, 27.3 from
but
16 to 3. But he's only taking 6% of all shots from those ranges
and
combined.
he's taking 29% of his shots from 3 to 10 feet,
Mhm.
and this is not great still, but he's at 36% after being consistently 30% or worse for the rest of his career. So it's progress. And he did not, and like that is directly that little push shot, right? The 3 to 10 feet shot, which he did not have. And as a result, he's shooting 62% at the rim. So he's become a little bit more efficient. He's shooting the ball better from the free throw line. And of late, he's been looking for more opportunities to pass the ball. He is now at 53% true shooting, which is the highest he's been at since 2020, which was his best season as a pro. So all good stuff of late, and the 3-point shot still hasn't fully come around, but he's up to 33% for the season. By the way, quickly is also basically shooting exactly to what he finished last year at. He's up to 34% from three, 53 true shooting. So the shooting has improved. I don't think anyone could dispute that, and it was really anemic early in the year, so it tells you how hot he's been. But getting back to RJ, there's been a lot to like. I think again he gets into trouble. I don't know how much of this is a Thibs thing or a him thing, but he gets into trouble when he's asked to create from the middle of the floor, um, with either a token ball screen or with no ball screen at all. I like him getting the ball on the move. I like him running that play for Sims. I like him in pick and roll, especially side pick and rolls. And I think they need to start spamming that because that gives him, because then when he does ISO, it's usually on a switch, and I think he's able to, but he has flashed some more one-on-one moves, like step back. They're not easy shots. They're not things that should be a huge part of his shot diet, but it's nice to see him expand his game a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think he's getting into those spots a lot cleaner. I think he understands like, okay, if I want to get to that push shot, how can I do it, and how do I do it productively and stuff like that. Like I think he's doing it in a much cleaner way. Yesterday he didn't finish on those shots well, but I basically didn't have a problem with any of those shots. He just missed them. He had a bad shooting game. It happens.
I like those push shots better when they're like off a drive than like I don't love him posting up still, but unless it's a smaller defender. He's had some success, but
So I
stronger
don't I
guys.
don't like that, but I also think you like
It's a good way to
that
expand his game too.
yeah, and it's also that's an example of good coaching from Tibbs to me, where it's like he's okay with I'm sure he knows that that's not great for RJ right now. That's not like a efficient shot for him, but I also think he probably understands that like to become a better player, he needs to develop that, and to develop that he needs reps, and he's allowing for that to happen. So like if I'm good, like I can't. It's one of those things, right? Like I can't be like, oh my god, he's not letting quickly initiate, but then like kill him for allowing RJ to initiate on something like that. But like, um, yeah, I'm okay with that. It's not clean. I think he's definitely working through stuff, and I think what it is when he has the size mismatch, he can just overpower those guys. He needs to develop more like actual footwork to handle more even strength matchups down there. He actually had one pretty impressive take on Harden in the post yesterday, which I thought he got fouled on. He finished anyway, but just to see that
Yeah,
against
he
a
got
guy as
shoved to the ground, didn't he? If I'm
yeah,
thinking of the same one. Yeah,
yeah. But the point was more the point is like to do that against somebody like Harden, who is for all of
for
his
all this,
flaws
yeah,
super strong, and like generally has always graded out as a very effective post defender. Um, that was impressive to me. And I'm curious to see. Like, I'm excited to see when we play Miami, just because I want to see him against Butler. Butler gave him a lot of issues last year on both ends of the floor. Um, but I definitely want to see how that strength bears out against somebody like Jimmy, right? Who is absolutely a fucking bull down there. Um, but yeah, like I'm encouraged by what I saw from RJ. The Brunson thing, I don't know. He had 2 bad games. He fucking choked at the end of that Chicago one. I thought he played really well yesterday. Could have played better. Not a perfect game, but he was good. I don't know. I really struggled to like say much about Brunson yesterday in that game, and like I think people were saying like he got exposed defensively. I don't know, man. I think Melton made some shots that were just like, what are you gonna do? I don't know.
yeah. And I mean, some of them were just. I mean, how many pull-up jumpers in transition did he hit?
I think he had
Um,
2 or 3.
that is a guy. I mean, that is a guy who was, I think, a good model for quickly to follow a little bit. But I mean, I think you've been the Anthony Melton guy for a long time,
Oh yeah.
and you could see why yesterday. And I mean, yeah, there's not much else you can say. I mean, I want to say he was hot, and there's nothing you do, but also like he's what almost 40% from three on that kind of a shot
And
diet.
he's also what I think he's 6'3". He's got a crazy wingspan, D'Anthony Melton. It's
Yeah,
actually
I
like
mean, he's
very
always been a great defender. I think the
yeah.
shooting has been. He came into the league as a 30% 3-point shooter, so that's been the real encouraging
Well,
development that he's made.
that's actually why we should give up on quickly. D'Anthony Melton's a really good example, actually.
But
Um,
he came in with a much worse shooter, right?
yeah,
Like even out of college, he was an athletic guy who was supposed to be like Javon Carter type, right? And
yeah, he's much better than Javon Carter. It's funny they got traded for each other.
yeah,
But what I was going to say about Melton is like he's also 6'3", and he's got a crazy wingspan. I think he's like 6'10" wingspan or something. It's
sounds
very
familiar.
very quickly esque. So even if I thought Brunson was in like position more than a few times to contest, and it was just like sometimes guys are just going to shoot over you and they're going to hit. Like I don't know. I did Brunson play the greatest defensive game yesterday? Not really. I don't think anybody did on the Knicks, to be honest. There was one guy that played well defensively. It was maybe Quickly and Mitch. Like that's about it. I didn't think anybody else was cutting up anything.
Grimes had some moments on Harden, but for the
Grimes
most,
had some moments. He also had some really dumb fouls. But like this is another one of those things where
he's guarding Harden,
yeah,
so
and he also like you only learn how to guard Harden by subjecting yourself to that torture, which is like I hate everything about this man because all he wants me to do is to touch him on the arm or touch him on the leg, and he'll go down writhing in pain.
this is
Um,
exactly what strippers say about James Harden too, by the way.
yes, but like I didn't think Grimes had a great. I thought he had a pretty, to be generous, I would say a mediocre defensive game.
Especially by his
Um,
standards.
yeah,
Sports
but
standards.
it's like one, it's James Harden, so that's gonna happen, and two, like I said, like he needs to have you need to fail against players that caliber to learn how to defend them. So that was a good experience for him. I had no problem with that. Um, but the point is, like, I don't know. I just thought I saw a few people mention that like Brunson was exposed on defense or he got hunted, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I really didn't see much other than Melton making shots over him.
Yeah, I mean, he's always going to be at a physical disadvantage. Um, I like Brunson in his role, but in the playoffs, he's going to get hunted in isolation.
Exactly.
Um, but he makes up for it on offense. And so, I mean, it is what it is. Like, if you want to lose, and yeah, and if you think the solution is bench Brunson, no, but then you have the people whining, oh, we gave Brunson $100 million. Like, no, it's very clear that's a trade off you make. But it is what it is. It has helped of late that you have Grimes and Barrett, and they allow you to, Grimes' insertion in the starting lineup basically allows you to hide Brunson somewhere else, right? Um, for the most part. But sometimes you play a team like Philly, or like in some ways it reminded me a little bit of the Clippers game, the 2020-21 game. Um, I think was that Christmas Day as well. It was December. Knicks were playing well, and the Clippers just played better. The Clippers played, this was when the Clippers were really at their peak. And this reminded me a little bit of that on defense for the Knicks, where it was just there's just not enough answers. You could get more athletic, but this is when guys like Embiid and Harden are playing that well, the question isn't whether they can beat the Knicks. The question is, can they beat Giannis? So
Well,
in 7 games,
yeah,
Giannis and Middleton.
Milwaukee has their own problems right now.
I think Middleton's going to solve a lot of them. I'm not worried
He
about Milwaukee.
is, but he also has not looked good when he's played. So that might be something they just need to hope he gets right by the playoffs.
What's interesting to me, I'm curious to this. This is a side note. If you look at the finals odds, Philadelphia is, to put it bluntly, not high or a lot lower than I thought. I think they're at plus 2,000 right now, whereas Boston's at like plus 320. So with the disclaimer that we don't give financial advice on this pod, I'm definitely curious to your thoughts if you think Philadelphia's a little bit undervalued there.
I think Philadelphia has no shot.
Really?
I just don't see it. Like I know Harden is. I know they're the second best defense in the league by defensive rating. I know that Harden and Embiid are superstars. I know that
Max is not even playing right now.
yeah, the Maxey has been awesome. I think your closing lineup against a team like I could see them beating Milwaukee. Quite frankly, I could see that. I don't think they would, but I think I could see that. I don't think they have a shot in hell against Boston.
Because the wings.
Just the wings, and I just think Boston's way too good. Boston has the exact type of defenders that they can just constantly throw different ones at Harden, and not get. They can switch up looks. I think they have really good and interesting defensive strategies to combat Embiid on the interior, and they're just really fucking good on offense, man. Like, I mean, I'm watching that Bucks game yesterday. And it's
Yeah.
like it's actually pretty funny because I remember after we played them, I think we lost 133, 118 or something.
The
But
Bucks?
like, no to
Boston,
Boston.
Boston, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember after that game, people were like, "Oh my god, our defense is terrible," and blah blah blah. And like, look, our defense wasn't great in that game, but they just do a lot. Like this is like there's sometimes teams just do stuff that really fucks you up. And given the fact that we play like the drop coverage we do, teams like there's a pretty look. It's not a coincidence that teams like Boston and Philly and Dallas have all given us really big problems defensively. Um, they all have a lot of shooting. They all have wing creators. They all have. They all have options to go 5 out. These are all things that give this Knicks team a problem. But the point I was going to make, and this is why, um, you know, like the Thibs thing with the defense, like why doesn't he adjust? It's like, look, we can sit here and talk about it until we're blue in the face. It is what it is. He's not going to do it. Against most teams, that's workable. There are just certain teams that are going to punish you, and they're one. Funny enough, Cleveland is not one, which is why I think we match up well with them. But like Boston is just they're like a fucking machine, man. They were getting open three after open three after open three against Milwaukee. Like, and Milwaukee's got Giannis on the floor. They got Brook on the floor. Brook's going to be a problem for them in any Boston series. I don't think they can play him very much. But like, they're just really good. They have so many guys that can dribble past shoot, right? Like, you've talked about obviously Tatum, Brown, but then you have like Smart. You've got Brogdon. You've got Derek White. You've got Grant Williams, who's turned himself into a fantastic shooter. Like, Sam Hauser is apparently the greatest shooter of all time. They've got so much shooting, and they've got so many guys that can take the advantage created for them by a Tatum or a Brown and multiply it or capitalize on it in whatever way. So they're just a really tough cover. I think it pains me to say that I really think that they are the favorite for good reason. And
For the finals of the East.
I mean, I think they're the best team in the league. I don't think anybody in the West has a shot. The West sucks compared to the East.
Yeah, I'd agree with
Unless
that.
maybe if Golden State makes some trades, bolsters their bench, they can do something. Stop playing James Wiseman. That might help. Maybe send him to the G League him. G League him.
I mean,
Have
they
them get it
have.
together. Yeah, they should
I,
maybe
I
just
don't think that would be. I mean, and there are guys who've like look at Marvin Bagley. He turned around his career. So it's not. I mean, they have to accept that he's not. He needs to not get the
yeah,
treatment.
but they're too good to be sitting around developing Wiseman. I'm sorry, like you're a championship contender. Their starting five is like the best starting five still in the league by net rating. Fucking go get some functional dudes off the bench. I'm sorry. Like you're talking about wasting a championship window because you're trying to have two timelines or something. Get the fuck out of my face. Um,
And if Brooklyn played Boston, I assume you would go. You
oh
think it
yeah.
would go similar to that last year?
Oh my god. They're probably even a better matchup. They're probably even a tougher matchup now for Brooklyn because Brogdon adds more. Like he just gives them another dude, right? Like I like Peyton Pritchard, but Brogdon is better today than Peyton Pritchard is, especially for what you want from that role, right?
But
He's
they
just
have Ben
better.
Simmons now.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe if they play them in round one again, they'll have a chance because that's Ben Simmons. That's his strong playoff round. It's after that he has issues.
Ben Simmons is shooting 48% from the free throw line. I think that's worse than Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, Mitch is up to like 53%. He's actually anecdotally, it looks like he's found a little rhythm at the free throw line.
Definitely doesn't look as ugly. I remember I looked a couple weeks ago and I was like, oh, and his free throws actually look more aesthetic, but the percentages weren't reflecting
Well,
that.
he still puts no arc on them, but he's putting them right about where he needs to.
And it's smoother. He used to do this little like
It
flick
came off
thing.
the bottom of his wrist.
Yeah, it was weird as shit. Now it's like he's shooting the ball now. It is flat, but he's at 55%, which is above his career average, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. But like, yeah, Boston just I think they're too good. pains me to say it. Really, I need somebody to do something to stop this from occurring.
But I mean, so to go back to the Knicks, I think most can agree that you know, with Cam out especially, they could probably use some help on the wing. Um, they need shot creation on the bench to come from a different place than RJ. And then I think the other thing is the Hartenstein Sims issue, which Obi coming back would fix it. But given that, what kind of moves are you looking at, or would you be looking at for the Knicks? As we get to the approach the trade deadline here.
um, they need a wing. I think that's for sure. I don't know who they would target. I will say this. Okay, I know that adding a player like this would be, oh, what are we trying to do? Okay, fine. The Hornets suck. Okay, they're a bad team. They're 9-24. They're tanking. They just don't know it yet. Gordon Hayward has another year left on his contract. $30 million. We know Michael Jordan hates losing, but we know that the thing he hates to lose the most is money. What if you offered them? I think you could do Rose and Reddish and I don't know. Rose, Reddish, Hartenstein from a second or two. Even though we have one less because of the ridiculous tampering violation.
That was insane though. Like every team is doing that.
It doesn't matter. It's
I'm
so
I'm so,
stupid.
I mean, I have to respect the teams that got their decisions in exactly in the 10 seconds between the free agency start and Shams tweeting it out. Uh,
It's but the point is like if you could do that for Gordon Hayward, I don't know. Like that's kind of like the wing that you are looking for, right? A
he
guy
would
who can.
also bring some stability to the offense. He could connect and he can create. I think that's the kind of player that really the Knicks could use.
Yeah, and I look, he's got injury issues. The good thing for him here would be you wouldn't actually need to play him a lot, right? Like you could play him. What did Burks average before we started making him the starting point guard of the team, right? Like Burks the year before was at 25 and a half minutes a game. Even if you played, if you played Hayward 22, 23 minutes a game, like that's perfect. That really, you know, we talk about some of the issues that Thibs has trusting quickly. I think that goes away. And you know what? I think quickly and Hayward would play really well off of each other. Um, so I think that would be an interesting choice. His contract expires next year. The Knicks aren't going to have cap space this summer. There's nothing to do with cap space this summer anyway, because the free agent class sucks so much ass. That would be an interesting one for me. I would not hate that. I've also talked about like cheaper options, guys that present less of a hindrance to giving guys like quickly and Deuce more opportunities, like a Jalen McDaniels from Charlotte or Garrison Matthews from Houston. But like if you're really in it to make the playoffs this year and you want somebody who can maybe contribute this year and next, I think Gordon Hayward is a pretty interesting option. I don't know. Look, I don't know that Charlotte will pull the plug because Jordan ultimately isn't saying about trying to win, but you got to think that like at some point something's got to give there.
Yeah, I actually like that trade, especially if it's like Cam like, and you keep. I mean, would you give up like one of the protected first for Hayward?
No, but like the thing is, you're still doing them a favor in some
Uh,
capacity.
are you
Like
though? Because
obviously,
like you said,
yes,
the free agent class sucks, and
yeah, but
same
they are
contract as
saving
Fournier.
money. But they're saving money, and that's big.
Hello.
Like, and you're not even giving them Fournier in this deal.
So what? Sorry, can you say the deal again?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So yeah, I can hear you. Hold on. I'm gonna put it in the little machine real quick just to make sure it works. Gordon Hayward is owed 30 million this year and next, so trade him to the Knicks, and then the Knicks send out Derrick Rose, They send out Cam Reddish. Get the fuck out of here, Cam. Why won't this go? Okay. So he goes, and then they send out Hartenstein. All right. So Hartenstein goes in this deal too. So effectively, the Hornets cut about 22 million from their payroll for next year, and they can probably find a team to flip Hartenstein for if they don't want to have Hartenstein. So maybe you can find a third team to get second round picks from to toss in the deal, right? Um, but yeah, look, that would work. So I would do that trade.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good trade for the Knicks. And then you're not giving up any firsts, so I think everyone would be a fan of that. And what about a guy like Harrison Barnes?
I wouldn't mind him, but I just don't see the Kings trading him. Like they're kind of in a similar boat to the Knicks, right? Where they're trying to win. They want to make the playoffs. What are you giving them that they would be okay with trading Harrison Barnes that like helps them? You know what I mean? Like I don't know what you can give them that fits with what they're doing that helps them win games right now that they would give up Harrison Barnes.
Okay, I'm going to go through a few teams, a few players on different teams, just going around. So sticking with the Hornets, let's say we call Michael Jordan. He says, "I have another wing who I'd rather trade. You
No.
can't have Hayward."
Nope, not doing Kelly Oubre.
I had the feeling that was the case. The Magic have a glut. Is there anyone on the Magic that you think they might be? I guess they probably are going to want picks, and we're probably not going to want to give it to them. So like Kuzma, I think we talked about this last time, but Kuzma is someone you're not interested in for the
I don't
Wizards.
know. I'll say this: if you're not, if you're willing to move Hartenstein, I think that's interesting. But the problem with Kuzma is he's going to want to start,
Yeah.
and there's just no world where that makes sense unless you're also dealing Randle, which I don't think they're going to trade Randle for Kuzma, right? So I don't know. I would, I'd be open to it. Like I do think there's a world where somebody suggested this the other day to me in my mentions that was like Randle for Kuzma and KP, and there was some other player that the Knicks sent out. I forgot what exactly the deal was. And I was like, look, I would not. I'd be hesitant to do this because I think the Knicks have like pretty decent vibes going right now, and I know they've lost 3 in a row, but I still think the vibes around the team are pretty good. I'd be hesitant to do that, and then you also have the issue where both Kuzma and Porzingis would be free agents at the end of this year, and you're gonna have to make a decision on them immediately. I don't know if I love that. But from a pure like basketball standpoint, I think there's a world where like Kuzma and Porzingis, even if they're not as good as Julius individually, they just they could make your team construct a lot more
But one of them would
dynamic.
have to come off the bench, right? Unless you bench Mitch for KP, but I don't think they would do that. So
Yeah, maybe you don't. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, one of them would have to come off the bench. Probably, I mean, maybe you move Mitch to the bench. Whatever it is, there's stuff that you need to work out. But like the idea of adding Porzingis and Kuzma to this roster, I mean, there is definitely like a level of dynamism there offensively in terms of spacing that
do
we
you
just
remember
don't have right now.
how did Porzingis and Brunson fit in Dallas? I didn't watch them too much together.
I mean, I can pull up the numbers real quick.
They didn't play together last year, obviously.
They'll play together a little bit. I mean, Porzingis got traded at the trade deadline, so yes. Are you thinking?
No, yeah. I'm looking it up now. Sorry.
All right. So if we look at, we'll just look at 2021, 22, and 20. So the 2 years prior to this one.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Brunson, Porzingis. Right. Their numbers together are over those 2 seasons. This is from 2020, 21 to 2021, 22. They were a minus 0.78 together 113.48 offensive rating, 114.26 defensive rating. That's in 1,216 minutes. If you take out the 2021 sample, shit, I hate when it does that. It's so annoying. Give me a second.
Yeah, resets. I do the same
Yeah.
thing.
If you go to just last year, those two together were minus 2.52 net rating. So
Okay, so
not a
not
great sample. Let me just do this. Let me take Luca out of the mix and see how that plays out. Because I think there was defensive issues with those. If you take Luca out of the mix, they are basically a neutral last year. And if you include the year before, and now I have to do all of this again because for some reason it resets and it's very annoying.
got to tweet at Daryl Blackboard, man. Tell him to get
Is
that
that
shit.
who runs the site?
Yeah.
All right. So if you include those 2 seasons, Brunson and Porzingis together without Luke on the floor in 819 minutes, they were a plus 1.52 net rating. So I guess at the minimum, you're looking at a team that was a neutral. I might argue that RJ and Grimes with Kuzma could be a better fit than what they had for a variety of reasons. But like, there's no way to know that. It's not like some highly encouraging sample. It's also not a sample where you're like, well, guess these guys are totally hopeless and suck together. It's more like a meh. But I don't know. I mean, there definitely is like an argument there. As I said, I don't think I would do that trade just because I do think the vibes are pretty good. And to be quite honest, like, yeah, you have to give credit where it's due. I think Randle has shown growth this year, not just in terms of his playing, but also his leadership off the floor. I think he's done a much better job of being a better teammate, of being a leader. He deserves credit for that. So I think I would hesitate to do that, but I don't know. I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah. And then um, okay, so another guy that's come up recently. So Eric Gordon is a guy. Excuse me, who's getting talked about a lot. Any interest there? I mean, probably gives you a little bit more defense than a guy like Fournier would. Um, do you think he's big enough to fill some of that wing void?
No, I have no interest in Eric Gordon. He's just a guy to me who, you know, whatever. Like I just think Eric Gordon he's a dude. He's not anybody that's very exciting. He's 34. He's older. What are you doing with him? I don't know. I know it's weird because I just suggested Gordon Hayward, but Hayward is bigger. Like if Eric Gordon was a wing, I would probably be a lot more receptive to it. Um, but my hesitation with any of these guys, especially like Gordon and Hayward, is that we've already like Thibs is already finding reasons not to let Quickly and especially Deuce do much offensively. I feel like that would just increase if you get him one of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a rule, I try not to. Um, I try to say that if you can't trade for good players because you're coach, then the bigger issue is the coach. Um, and then
Yeah, and I think that might be it'd be if they were younger, I think that's way more reasonable, but because of their age, I think it should matter more because it's like, well, if Tibbs is going to just not use those other dudes now because he has this vet, it kind of fucks us in the sense that like the vet isn't providing anything long term either. Doesn't really serve a purpose in the short or long term. So, um, or the short term purpose doesn't really give you any long term benefit, which is like so like if you're trading for a guy who's 26, 27, 28, that player can still give you like, 3-4 years of service, right? A guy like Gordon or Hayward, who knows what they're going to give you? It might not be that long. Gordon is 34.
you
Hay,
said Gordon or Hayward, and that it's like,
yeah.
wait, they're the same guy.
And then Hayward is 32. So I don't know. And obviously in Hayward's case, he's had so many injury issues. So it's I don't know. There are definitely moves to be made. And I do think they're going to have to make a move. They need another wing. That's very obvious to me. Preferably, it would be a wing that can play the 3 or the 4 so that when Obi comes back, they're not stepping on each other's toes.
Well,
But
that's Hayward would be.
yeah, I mean, I guess Hayward can play the 4. But even if he's gonna stick with this like demented dingbat, uh, Sims Hartenstein fucking lineup, Frankenstein thing that he's going with, Hayward might actually be able to make at least a little bit more sense of that.
So you have so just going through, there's a list I found. So the Raptors trade targets listed are Julian Champagny. The Knicks probably aren't going to be not banging on the doors. Um, there's Otto Porter Jr. Do you think the Raptors would trade him?
Has he even played this year?
I don't think so. I think he's been hurt, but
So I mean, they probably would trade him, but like, what are you doing with him if he's not
yeah, I
playing?
mean, if he's healthy, I think that's the kind of, again, that
Yeah,
he
if
fits
he's
that.
healthy, he'd be awesome. I'd love him.
And then there's another guy the Raptors have who can play the 3 or 4, like basically every player on the roster. Bo
Pascal
Cruz.
Siakam.
Bo Cruz.
Oh, no, I'm not. I think I used to like. I was like a really big believer of Wancho as a prospect his first year or two, especially in the NBA. But the ship has sailed for Bo Cruz. I think I'm
He
out.
got some run against the Knicks.
Yeah, he's been getting a run against a lot of teams. Actually, funny enough. But I think if you're gonna go for somebody on that team, it would probably be like what Gary Trent Jr. But
Yeah, he's gonna be pricey.
yeah, he's gonna be pricey, and you're gonna have to pay him after this year. So I have no idea what that's gonna run you. I don't know. The Raptors don't seem like a good trade partner for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, and I think within Division Two, or not within Division, but within conference.
Yeah.
Then I don't know why Bol is listed as available for the Magic, but they probably shouldn't trade him.
I'll give you a guy that I think would be interesting, and I would guess wouldn't cost you too much. So this is a guy who's only playing 15 minutes a night right now. He played 23, just under 23 last year. He's a career 37.7 3-point shooter. Not on super high volume, but capable shooter. He's a career 58 true shooting guy. He's down to 52 true shooting this year, but again, he's not playing as much. Amir Coffee on the Clippers.
I'm more of a chai guy myself, but
Nice. I mean, I don't have any strong feelings about him. It's not like I've been crunching Amir Coffee tape. But I think he'd be like, I don't think he'd cost you much. His contract is pretty decent too. He's making basically 3.5 million next year. After he's making 3.4 this year, 3.67 next year, and then just under 4 next year, or the year after that. So I don't know. I think that contract. If you're just
he's
looking
really
for
just a rotation casualty, right? Because the talent they have. So
yeah, and if you're just looking for like somebody to eat some minutes on the wing and be a functional player while you're waiting for like Obi to get healthy and all these kind of things, that seems okay, right? I mean, he's not how old? He's like 25 too, so it's not like you're getting Amir Coffee's prime here, you know. No, but like I think that's like, and as much as like Hayward, talking about Hayward and guys like that, it's more fun. But I still think ideally, like losing these last 3 games should not change the broader thinking, at least to me. Like, and my broader thinking has consistently been you're better off just forcing Thibs to play these young guys. And this is why you can't do it. Like he played 6 minutes yesterday again. Like this is why you have to be very careful about trading for somebody because that 6 minutes will turn into 0 very quickly. No, I want to see what these guys have. Like I want to see what they have, and I'm okay with just letting the chips fall where they do. You know, I know the front
I
office
mean,
probably has different pressures than they have obviously a lot different pressures than I do in talking about this stuff. But
no, but even you want to see a top 6 seed, right?
I do, but I'm also fine with like seeing what our guys have. I think that's way more important than what the hell seed we end up with. And at this point, I think we're pretty. I would be very surprised if the Knicks don't at least make the plan at this stage.
Yeah, that's not a question. The question is, so there's 2 things, right? I think yesterday, during the winning streak, one question that came up is, all right, they look pretty good. Could they even forget making the playoffs because they make some noise in the first round. I think one thing for me, at least, it seems like we had different levels of kind of how sanguine we were about yesterday. Yesterday proved to me that that was the 5 seed. That is a team that very well could be the 5 seed. There's a gap. Is that fair to say between the Knicks and the Sixers?
Yeah, absolutely.
And basically every team in the top five.
Yeah.
Especially when you get the good version of the Nets. So I do tend to agree with you. I think Hayward is like kind of a no-brainer value move that would put them, it would secure them. I think the question is like, can they beat out a team like the Raptors, right? For that sixth spot. The Raptors are, in my
Raptors,
opinion,
Hawks, and
in the
there's
Heat.
another one. Yeah,
Heat.
Heat.
The Heat have the experience and
And
the
the
coaching.
Pacers.
Yeah, I think at some point, I don't think the Pacers go full Wemby, but I do think the Knicks are a better team than them. I'm really worried about the Raptors, the Bulls. Sorry, the Raptors, the Heat, and the Hawks, and really the Raptors. The Heat are aging. I'm not sure I could bet on them to be healthy, even though they probably have the best individual player out of those three teams. You could say Siakam over Bam. Um, Sorry, Trey is the best individual player, but I do like Bam a lot. The Hawks are still kind of a mess, but we saw in 2020, 21, this is a team that's gotten hot in the past before. So the question is, does this help you seal that like 6 seed over those three teams? That's what Hayward would do. If you're not doing that, I would rather take kind of a flyer. So I like the McDaniel's
Like
idea
somebody
a
like
lot.
Cam Reddish.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to bring up a specific Cam Reddish trade that I've seen someone bring up. If the person is listening and I didn't credit you, I'm sorry. But there is a player on the Bulls or on the Nets who's 22, and the Nets seem like, on the one hand, not a logical trade partner for the Knicks ever, just because whatever.
Are you going
Um,
to say Cam Thomas?
no, Kessler Edwards.
He's been fucking awful.
I mean, he's played 5 minutes a game this year. Last year, shot 35% from three. Pretty good defender. Connective player, and he's 6'8", and probably has a little bit more. I mean, a Cam for Edwards trade is like, let's trade for each other's kind of low value young player flyer assets.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't do much for me. I'm not a big Kessler Edwards guy. I didn't love him in that draft. Not that I studied him extensively, but even from what I've seen of him in the
clips that were spammed to your inbox.
yeah, no. Even from what I've seen of him in the NBA, I just don't really care. So,
But I would rather trade for a young. I mean, I guess maybe
yeah.
Coffee fits that that mold. And then the other thing is, so I know that you are pro kind of letting the young guys cook. If a guy like Jordan Clarkson was available,
No,
there's no interest there because of the
no.
defense, because he has been playing really, really well this year.
Yeah, that's great for him. I'm very happy for him, and I hope him all the success in the world. I have no interest in trading for Jordan Clarkson. That is like the ultimate dumbass move, in my opinion.
Can you elaborate why?
He is putting up numbers on a team where there's absolutely no pressure. They have spacing that we cannot replicate and have never been able to replicate. His entire value comes with what he produces on the ball. And the way that our team operates, those opportunities are going to be very limited for him. So I would, and if he does get those opportunities, they're not going to come at the expense of RJ Barrett. They're not going to come at the expense of Julius Randle. They're not going to come at the expense of Jalen Brunson. They're going to come at the expense of the Emmanuel Quickleys of the world and probably the Obi Toppins of the world. And I'm sorry that I am not interested in doing that for a 30-year-old who is not a fucking all-star. Like, what is Jordan Clark is a nice player. Great. Wonderful. I'll fucking write a song about it. Like,
He's a fourth guard on a really good team.
he is fine. Like, if we're trading for Jordan Clarkson, we should have just kept Burks. Burks is better for what we need. He actually has utility if he's
Better
not
defense.
scoring because he can defend. He's a decent rebounder. Just a general, he knew exactly how to play off of the guys that we had. Just, we should have just kept Burks then. But I'm not really interested in Jordan Clarkson. Not mostly I just don't particularly care for how he fits with what we need. Like the Knicks have an identity. They need to lean into that identity and find guys that have and find guys that fit that. Not bring in offense heavy volume scorers who don't like to play defense at all. I think that's the wrong idea. That's a reason why I like Gordon Hayward, because he's not like a particularly great defender, obviously, but he's a decent defender and he's a good passer and he's a connective passer. He's a quick decision maker. That is the type of shit the Knicks need. They
They
need
do
more
need some
of.
shooting too, by the way.
Hayward can shoot.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
agreeing with you.
yeah. So
Um, Looking ahead a bit, so the Knicks play another team notorious for going 5 out in the Mavs tomorrow. Do you think we see any adjustments from Tibbs? Do you
no,
think maybe he would go small?
nope.
And do you think the results will be the same, or are you a little bit more optimistic about the Mavericks?
I mean, it's always possible because we did not compete on the glass at all the last time we played the Mavericks. I don't think that would be the case this time, so that automatically
Knicks
increases our
played
chances.
too, right?
He did. That was just that was when the Knicks were still like in their very weird, we're just not going to do anything on the defensive glass stage. I think it'll be better because we're just flat out trying harder and we're doing things that should theoretically help move the margin in our favor, like defensive rebounding and offensive rebounding even. But am I optimistic about it? I mean, I don't know. Can we beat the Mavericks? Sure. Yeah, I think we can. I don't think the Mavericks are like some amazing fucking team, but they do have Luka and they
And
do
they can get
present
hot in a hurry.
yeah,
Like
and
we
they do
saw that
present
last time.
problems because of their ability to play 5 out. Although, I will say, without Maxi Kleba, their 5 out option is Christian Wood, who is a much worse defensive player than Kleba is, and that presents its own opportunities for the Knicks.
And not the name of a Christian dating site.
I also just hope we win because we haven't lost to them in Dallas since 2016-17.
Yeah, it's been the one. It's been the one good thing after that Porzingis trade. And I just remember the first time we won there, and everyone just shitting on Howard Beck. And
Yeah, it was fun.
that was fun. I think he probably muted everyone on Nick's Twitter at that point.
Pretty sure he blocked everybody on Nick's Twitter.
No, I think he mutes a lot because I've sent him
He-
some foul shit, and I need to stop responding. So I'm
He
sure
blocked
muted
me, so I know that.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. That is our pod for today. Hope everybody had a great Christmas and is enjoying the most bullshit work week of the year, which comes between Christmas and New Year's Eve. Stacy, let the people know where they can find you and plug anything that you'd like to plug.
You can find me at Stacy Patton 89. We have some more draft content coming out at the Strickland. So, especially if you're trying to cheer yourself up during the Knicks' recent, let's not call it a skid, underwhelming home stretch, this would be a good time to start checking out some draft stuff.
For sure. I have nothing to plug myself, so I'm just going to plug all the wonderful work at the Strickland. I will plug all of the podcasts, draft content. Definitely check out the rundown that Tyrese and Sam host after each game. Even when we lose, they're entertaining. So give that a follow. Check out the merchandise on the store. I know Christmas just happened, but it's never too late to look good in Knicks gear.
Yeah,
So
Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. And
yes,
Happy
Merry
New
Christmas
Year.
to everybody. And Merry Christmas to Tua Tagovailoa, who pissed himself yesterday, and the Dolphins, who are finding new and really fun ways to miss the playoffs. So I hope that happens. Good luck to them, but not really. But that is our
and
pod.
beat TCU, man. Fuck,
Yes.
can't lose that shit again this year.
Yes, and hopefully Michigan beats TCU. All right, that is our pod for today. I hope everybody has a great week again, and I will see you on Friday.